All right. Weekly outlook time. I know I did it yesterday, but um, I'll record the condensed version now and probably talk a little bit more about today specifically as well, because I'm doing it a little late. Um, so last week we really didn't do much. We we were imbalancing obviously to start the week. That was sort of the idea, whether we continued the imbalance or not. Consolidated obviously Monday gapped higher, consolidated the next two sessions, worked lower and sort of is working into a balance now. Um, the idea from last week still stands. It's like buyers aren't necessarily in trouble until we lose this and trade back into this. So they're really not in trouble for, probably another, what is that, percent lower, percent and a half, right? Even if we trade down here, like they got a chance to defend this. Um, So that still stands for buyers. Obviously, if you want an immediate continuation higher out of this multi-week balance, they're gonna have to work off these lows, I would think, um, and get a rotation back up to the upper end and keep going, right? Um, we probably even risk like continuing to trade sideways within this, if anything. Um, So the idea this week I think is going to be sideways until otherwise, up against where value was established really all of last week, Monday to Friday. Um, so those levels are probably going to be the most important, at least to start the week. Who knows where the heck we're going to be by the end of the day today. Um, ES relatively weak still. Yeah, last week they're relatively weak. It looks like they're still relatively weak today. Um, and Cube looks the same, right? They just said relative strength. So in terms of levels, really I'm just taking composite of all of last week. Um, in terms of like I usually I'm working with um ideally I get a bell curve that I get to work with, and in that case, I sort of have like a upper end and lower end, right? Whether it's a little bit of a range or not. Kind of tough here. It's it just tapers off into this, tapers off up here for the most part. So maybe I need a level up here, and then I have a level down here. But the bulk of it really sits in this 10-point range on ES, which is kind of weird. You can almost attribute it to options positioning. There was some funky things going on. I think it was Thursday with 1,000 lots kind of just holding or being executed in this 10-point range on NQ on ES. So maybe that's why you have all that volume there. Um, yeah, I most definitely need a level up there. Sort of where this starts to taper. Okay. And simply looking at yesterday's profile or Friday's profile, um, they did okay in the morning, uh, more so on NQ, but they did okay in the morning. We tried to establish acceptance. You had the little attempt away from value here, worked higher, and I thought we were going to get the rotation back up to the upper end. This is a lot clearer on NQ, but failed, right? And nearly closed the gap. And then whether they just didn't want to go lower or you just got end of month flows that started. I don't know what to attribute it to, but you got a pretty strong move back up to basically like the high day. Faded into the close. Um, So, you know, can this gap still close? Sure. I think we'll really have to watch today and tomorrow, but I think that might have just been the low. Um, so we'll see what RTH does, but I think, yeah, this lower end I think is going to be important. If anything, like maybe give them down to here today. Same idea on NQ. All right, this is what their composite looks like last week. And it really just like almost even in terms of volume, all the way from up here down to arguably this. I only marked this off instead of this was because we had, I believe, the 2 days down here, which were basically like overlapping in terms of range. That's sort of where they taper off. Okay. And in terms of like executing, I think it's going to be easier there as opposed to somewhere down here. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't want to say I'm confused, but going into last Friday, we faded away from value, right? Like most of our value on NQ was established towards the highs. Thursday got a little bit of weakness, obviously, with the FOMC. Um, the only thing that popped, or not FOMC, that was Wednesday, Thursday. Weakness on Thursday. The earnings is what really popped us up. And I mentioned in my plan that like we really needed to confirm whether that pop was gonna hold, right? If other names were gonna have some strength as well. And we were sort of expecting this level to hold if anything. And they did that in the morning, right? We got the long off of here, but ended up fading into the middle of the day and kind of traversing that prior session's range before working back. So once we got down into this, I thought we were gonna go a little lower, but we're doing this now, so I think I have to change that idea and say we're gonna get another rotation back up to the upper end before we go do anything drastic. So I think that's the idea I'm gonna take into today is to get long. No, I should have been long 130s. I took it on a couple prop accounts, but I didn't take it on. Yeah, I didn't take it on my own, unfortunately. I'm gonna probably add another level up here. You get a little bit of a shelf here at these like 190s, which puts you at Thursday's highs. Yeah, puts you at like Thursday's highs and Friday's little excess high. So I think I'm gonna work with this. Yeah, the 130s would have been the easiest place to execute, I think. Actually, I don't even know if I want to watch the 130s. I had the 130s level. I forget why. Like looking at it now, it's not that important. I guess you could say it's like the little low volume node in between sort of separates these two, or separates this one big balance. right? You can sort of see that it's 2 here. Yeah, I think that's why I had it. But let me do a profile of just like Thursday to Friday. Sort of makes sense. Okay, no, we'll leave that there. So I think that's what I'll work with. Sideways within last week's range until otherwise, with at least to start the week. Would think we work a little higher. Just the relative strength in NQ. The divergence is tough. Any questions? Music. You guys still can't hear my music, can you? I thought I changed it. Is it worth merging value if it's not at least somewhat overlapping? If it's is it worth merging value if it's not at least somewhat overlapping? When it's overlapping, it makes sense, right? Obviously, like these 2 sessions. Like I think you can understand that Thursday and Friday. Only reason I do this, well, I look at both, is you're in a balance here, right? Like you're one time framing up here, one time framing up, one time framing up. And then you end the one time framing up and then go into a balance. So it makes sense, I think, to merge balances. It might not make sense to, only look at this. I think it's important to look at multiple perspectives. So that's why I'm always like switching in and out of this merged one, or maybe just these 2 sessions, and whatnot. Does that make sense? Good. I'm gonna stop recording the weekly outlook and just answer questions.